sure that you're spacing this out so that you have decent coverage. I'm going to be honest with this length of a cutting board, these pieces being 15 inches, from one notch to the other on this is about 12. That's a little wide, okay? The theory is, like, if I was to clamp this just like this, you're going to get roughly 45 degrees worth of pressure here and 45 degrees worth of pressure there, and you want them to overlap like about halfway or so. So if I have Nathan hang on to them for a sec, and I spread these so that there's a space in between, and then we set them back down. You see how that's a little bit wide, that I'm kind of clamping on the outside couple inches and outside couple inches. So I'm kind of going here and I'm losing some clamping area. Well, I'll show you how we kind of combat that. And this is probably going to be your more accurate way of doing it. So run it like this, but we're going to end up running a third clamp. Okay? So what's going to happen? A lot of you have done this, and it's the same procedure no matter if we're doing edges, no matter if we're doing faces. This happens to be faces. I like to personally, if I have room, I lay them all down. Well, you got 13 pieces. So if we want to lay them all down, and usually I lay them kind of away from me, and then I would work on gluing them. So I'm just kind of fast forwarding and saying I would start here, push it against. Then this one would be laid down, push it against. We're going to kind of follow that same premise, except we are going to start over here, and I'm just not going to lay down all 13 pieces. What you're going to do, ladies and gentlemen, is put a pretty liberal amount of glue across it. Here's what I want to point out. This is kind of a review. Nathan's going to jump in and help here in a second and take the reins, but I want to show you that this is approximately what I'm looking for. Okay? I'm looking for a solid skin of glue across the whole thing. Okay? Now, I'm going to subtly change this a little bit. That is what some students think is tolerable and okay. And you can see that you can see right through that. Okay, it doesn't have that good coverage like it does on the other end. Whereas other people will gob it on so thick that it's like you can't see through it at all. So somewhere in the middle. You don't want too much, you don't want too little. You want just kind of a nice even film over the whole thing. One of the videos that I put on Google Classroom talks about gluing. It's kind of a cheesy video, but in reality there's some good information in it. So Nathan is going to grab this one, and you guys are going to work in probably partners. So Nathan's going to have this one, it's going to go that way. So I got this one, and I got to do this face. Make sure that you don't screw up your orientation or your numbering, so that if you went through and fit everything how you wanted, that you're going to mess that all up. The other thing, remember I was just talking about having kind of a wider piece on the outside edge. Anybody got any idea why you think you might want a wider piece on the outside edge? What do you think, Lori?
So when it gets cut down to size, you still see that cord.
Correct. And more than that, not just so that you can still see it. Go ahead, put some glue on one, Nathan. Not so much even that you can still see that one board. It has more to do with the fact that if you have a slight variance, that your glue joints aren't perfectly parallel with your final edge, that what happens is otherwise you have a thin piece and it winds up being a sliver from maybe a 1/4 inch over here to like a 1/16 or nothing, or worst case scenario like an 1/8 of an inch, and then it goes to nothing halfway, and it really makes it look bad. Right now we're finally to the point that they're all kind of laid down, and I'm going to show you why I like that best personally in just a second. You're going to see that it's going to speed up. I got a little heavy on this one, so I'm going to scrape a little bit off onto there and throw it on the ground, obviously. Which one do I got? You got 7, that goes in between. Alright. So these were laid down this direction like this. Why I like to leave them like that is I just put glue on 5 pieces in about the time that it would have taken me for 1.5 or 2 if they were individual. Because by the time you got that glue that all ran down toward the bottom of the bottle, now I can spread them out quicker. I don't know. For me, that process just works a little smoother. I kind of do the same thing with my edges. When I edge glue, that when I set things up, I stand them up on edge. The nice thing there is they get narrower, so once you're kind of dry fitting them, they all work good. The reason that you want to cover all the surfaces is you don't want to count on the glue to like travel where it would need to on its own, and you want good surface to surface bond. Does anybody know anything about gluing? Like, has anybody ever broken apart a piece that got glued together?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what'd you find out?
It'll break the wood that where the glue joints are.
Right. The glue, when done properly, you can slide in. When done properly, what I always do right before I do the last one is I try to get as much of that glue off of my fingertip as I can, because I don't want it on my fingers. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to push it. I'm going to slide these clamps back to what Miles was just, go ahead. Miles was just getting at. Later on, I will glue some pieces together, and I will take them. We'll take them on the anvil in the metal shop, and I'll smash them apart and break them. And I will show you that it does not break on the glue joint. When done properly, the glue joint is actually stronger. So what I want you to do is I want everybody to crouch down and look underneath a little bit. Right now it should be kind of touching our bars on our bar clamp. That's integral. We want that to kind of stay that way. So what I do is I start over here and I snug this end up. If Nathan looks, this is his pieces, so he's going to look and make sure that he's roughly flush here. Don't get bent out of shape if they're off by a 16th or an 8th, one way or another. That's the name of the game. He's going to snug up that one. And snug simply means gets it snug. Just kind of takes the pressure, just begins to put pressure on it. I'm going to give a little more to mine, a little more to his. Now we're going to look underneath. We're going to double check. Did it really badly squirt up anywhere? Like, is there any major spots that we're worried about? If it's just a hairline, we're not worried. And by looking at his, I don't have any concerns. Maybe right over here a little bit. That's where this rubber mallet usually lives, right here next to it. Don't be scared to tap it if it's bad. But don't just hit it because you feel like, oh, I need to stand here and hit it. No, hit with a purpose and try to solve a problem. That was sticking up just a little bit right there. So I think we're pretty clear now. Now, that's done. Grab us another clamp, please. Any of them. So, what we do is open it up and put it in the middle. So what we did is we snugged these pretty tight now. Okay, we didn't wrench them yet, but we snugged them pretty tight. Gluing, you have about 5 minutes from beginning to end, from the first droplet that went on until it should be clamped. Put it on top. So what we try to do is he's going to put that there and he's going to cinch this up. Okay, so then he wants it to be perpendicular. I got it a little bit. You just tighten it and snug it. And how it works is usually the handle spacing, if you ever have to turn a handle to get it out of the way of another one, you got your clamps a little too close, like you're going a little overkill. So what he's doing now is he's tightening that one up. Now tighten that one up, please. Because this is 13 boards, which means that there are 12 joints in between, it's going to take a little more pressure than if it's just 2 boards and there's 1 joint, okay? You can tighten it actually so tight that you squeeze the glue out from the joint and then you weaken it. This one being 13 boards, I'd refit pretty well, but you know, maybe don't do it till you're blue in the face, but get it pretty tight. So if I'm him, you know, 2 hands, wrench it relatively tight. Now come back and tighten these 2 up. Got it? Okay. The last thing that he needs to do is he needs to put his name, the date, and the time Does anybody remember when you've done this before? How long does it need to clamp? You remember, Mason?
Half hour.
Half hour is bare minimum. I try to leave it on for at least an hour, personally. So he just wrote the time. I can see that he's got his name on there already. He's got 11, 12 on there. We're good on the date. We know what year it is. In a nutshell, that's it. It's not anything too pressing. When you're done, you're going to unclamp it and then scrape the glue. If you have that hour left in the same class period, or 45 minutes even, and you can unclamp it and scrape it before all this glue gets super, super hard, it's going to scrape a whole lot easier. That's just a little warning that if you can unclamp it at maybe that hour point, scrape it right away, that glue's going to scrape off a whole lot easier than it's going to tomorrow, and then you can move ahead faster. Got it? Questions? Got